How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing, Joe?
Oh, a lot of people. I just got a bunch of phone calls saying, "What do you mean you don't want the government?" I said, "Listen to the whole thing I'm saying about churches. We'll get into them in a little while with that." But how did the markets do today?
Well, the markets were pretty interesting today in that they started off sharply down this morning and then basically rallied throughout the day. And it was a relatively slow day for stocks. The volume was probably only 80% of a normal trading day, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that the banks in Cyprus are now set to open tomorrow, I think 6 a.m. East Coast time. So I think people are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen there. But what's been kind of interesting over the last couple of days is looking at, we've seen some positive economic data. We know we have this Cyprus precedent-setting deal going on. And we've seen the markets reflect that, I think, a little bit. And if you look at the oil market, we're up, 5-6% over the past week, which would suggest that there is some stronger economic growth going on, and that's kind of driving up demand for oil. And yet we've also seen treasuries rallying over that time. And, the 10-year treasury was at 2%, just a week or so ago, and now it's at under 1.85. And that would suggest to you that people are nervous and they're dumping money into the treasury market. And equities along this whole time have basically moved sideways. So it's kind of interesting to see the different parts of the market price different potential outcomes into the into their markets.
Do you think this? I was listening to a report on this cyber attack that happened
today. The slowdown has its roots in a feud between the Geneva-based anti-e-spam group Spamhaus and the Dutch website hosting company Cyberbunker. After Spamhaus blacklisted Cyberbunker distributed materials as spam, Spamhaus says it's been the target of denial of service attacks by Cyberbunker, which has had the side effect of mass internet delays. Spamhaus, which has more than 80 servers worldwide, claimed the attacks have been ongoing since March 19th. If the conflict is not resolved before it escalates further, web experts say the threat to overall cybersecurity will grow more serious. Rebecca Foster, Washington.
And I noticed that today. I noticed that I was having all sorts of trouble surfing the web today. Did that have any impact today on the markets, Mark, do you think?
I don't know if it had a bunch of impact, and I didn't have any personal issue with it, but I know Wells Fargo dealt with a denial of service attack yesterday, and I think everybody's still trying to figure out what happened in Korea. What was it, at the end of last week when there was belief that North Koreans potentially hacked into the banking sector, and so I do think that's something that the government or banks and whoever else deals with cybersecurity needs to address. But we haven't really seen it play out specifically in stocks. I mean, even Wells Fargo stock was down today, but over the last couple of days, it's kind of moved sideways after the announcement came out of its attack. I think it was yesterday that they were under attack.
Well, is there, as they continue, now the president signed the continuing resolution that funded everybody. It was not yesterday, but late the day before, Mark. Mm-hmm. So that seemed to settle some things down as well. What about treasuries? How you said there was something going on with that was keeping everything floating along nicely?
Well, the Treasury market has been rallying over the last, week or so, and it was the 10-year, and again, we're talking historically low Treasury levels in general, but the 10-year was up over 2%, a week or two ago, and now we've seen it trade back down to kind of a yield of under 1.85 today, and that's a pretty significant move, and generally, people pile into Treasuries when they're, they're looking for a safe haven, they're looking for a good place to kind of park their money, and so it's kind of been interesting to see the Treasury market behave this way, and yet, stocks have kind of continued to be, neutral to positive, and yet most of the economic data has been positive. So there is, it just kind of highlights the fact that there's a lot of variables at play. There's strong economic data, but there's still a lot of risk out there, especially in Europe.
A relatively stable, if not exceptional play for folks who are keeping a 401k floating, huh?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's tough to think about buying bonds in any kind of bulk just because they are so strong arguments. They're very overvalued and yields are so low that the risk return to me right now in the bond market isn't overly compelling.
Mark Smith at RedWaveInvestments.com. Mark, M-A-R-C, at RedWaveInvestments.com. Thank you, sir. You have a great afternoon. We'll check in tomorrow.
Thanks, Joe. You too.